Ely took the first game. You see, as we go join him in game 2 here, we see a Zealous Conscripts and Knight of the Reliquary both in play for Ely. He's got Jim to 18. So Jim's still very healthy on life points, but he had 5 lands in play, a Snapcaster on blocking. So Jim definitely behind on the board, but you see at least 1 Ancestral Vision in the graveyard. So plenty of cards in Jim's hand as we go to Ely's turn here.
And one thing that Ely has going for him that's quite strong in this matchup is his deck actually plays 4 copies of Voice of Resurgence, which is really powerful against the blue decks in Modern.
Yeah, not only does it demand a Path to Exile, nothing like a Lightning Bolt, but that second ability that makes elementals when opponents play on your turn, that's going to be really good against Jim.
Yep, and even if it's getting Path to Exile, you know, Ely is trying to use a good amount of mana anyway.
The play is Noble Hierarch from Ely. He attacks for 4 with Zealous Conscripts, thanks to Exalted, and he passes back to Jim. Jim will untap here. His hand is pretty land heavy. He looks like he has 3 lands, a Lightning Bolt, and a copy of Emrakul.
Yeah, this is not a great position.
You know, when you watch this Jeskai deck, I'm a big fan, but boy, it seems like they draw that one of Emrakul quite a lot.
It's the Progenitus problem that has been existing in Legacy Elves for a long time. I know that when I put those cards in my deck, I just always draw them.
We got to give a shout out to Jim here. On his deck registration sheet, he's made a point of letting us know that the Sacred Foundry in his deck is not Sacred Mesa for this tournament. If you were not joining us back a month ago at the Dallas Open, Davis had registered a Sacred Mesa.
That could only be better if his deck reg sheet had Ghost Town instead of Ghost Quarter.
So Gavany Township puts counters on Knight of the Reliquary and Noble Hierarch for Kassis. He did lose his Zealous Conscripts to a Lightning Bolt, but Knight will continue to grow.
Shucks.
Noble Hierarch will attack. Kassis is leaving back that Knight of the Reliquary. Now, does he have what are his utility lands to find?
So the Gavany Township in play there. Then he has a Ghost Quarter, and everything else is just fetch lands, shock lands, basic lands. He can just be building towards a Knight that's large enough to clock Jim in 2 turns, something like that.
All right. Ely, this is a good one. He passes the turn. Jim cracks a fetch land. In response, Ely's going to play Aven Mind Sensor. And it looks like it works. Jim looks at the top 4 cards of his deck, does not find a land, and just has to shuffle.
I play decks that don't get too fancy with searching, and I've been wrecked by an Aven Mind Sensor. I assume you hate this card.
It's usually good against me. Yeah. Jim land heavy in the hand already. He'll just play Sulfur Falls and pass.
Land heavy, but nowhere near heavy enough to cast that Emrakul.
Yeah. And you said that before, that most Jeskai decks actually do not play enough mana-producing lands to cast Emrakul, even if...
Let's do a quick count of Jim. I see 14 a lot in these decks.
So at that point, just for, the elegance of the situation, I'd want to play a 15th.
Yeah, he has exactly 14.
All right.
Come on, Jim.
There's no way to one-shot an extra mana, is there?
You could turn a fetch land into a mana-producing land.
But then he... No, that doesn't work. Oh, no, I mean in his list. There's no trick to get the 15th mana.
Oh, yeah. With the way the deck is configured, he's never casting Emrakul.
Well, Jim, a little flooded here. We go back to Ely. He plays Voice of Resurgence. And now continues just the slow beating here. Aven Mind Sensor attacks for 3 thanks to Exalted. Ely has yet to attack with his Knight of the Reliquary, despite a whole host of lands in his graveyard. You see with Noble Hierarch, he's leaving up Township mana. It's just, he's taking a very slow approach here.
Yep.
Now, is there not worry if Ely goes this slow with damage that Jim will say, Supreme Verdict him?
That's certainly a worry. The Voice of Resurgence will replace itself, though the Knight will not. Eldritch Evolution is, of course, a sorcery. There's nothing we can do with that. I think he's just in a lot of trouble if Jim has Supreme Verdict.
So Ely attacked. Jim flooded, shrugged, and activated Colonnade to block. Ely Ghost Quartered it. Jim fanned out the top 4 cards of his deck. Well, no, there wasn't a basic there, so it is just a strip mine.
It's kind of a wasteland. Of course, I think very few people would be happy to see wasteland in Modern.
As someone who plays Valakut, I agree. I think it would be very good against my deck.
As someone who's lost enough non-games against Tron, I would kind of like to have it.
It would really affect Tron's playability.
You could not play Tron.
Jim replays the 6th land, and this shows why he was so eager to trade away the Colonnade. Second Colonnade is there if you look at second to the bottom.
Yep. Though by now that Knight is significantly larger than Colonnade. That's got to start entering the red zone pretty soon here. Even the Township activation plus the Noble Hierarch will make the Mind Sensor at least trade with that.
So you're telling me, as someone who likes to play Delver Secrets decks, you'd be fine with a Wasteland reprint in Modern?
That would be surprising, good. Right?
No.
Is that inconsistent?
You know.
Why would you want your deck to be the best deck?
As someone who's played cards like Simic Growth Chamber, I'll say, that would really that would mess up my style. And now Ely will go for the full attack. It's a Aven Mind Sensor, a Knight of the Reliquary, a Noble Hierarch, and a Voice of Resurgence. 2 counters on the middle 2 creatures, 1 counter on the Mind Sensor and the Voice. And keep in mind, there's enough mana for Ely to activate Township again. Jim is at 8. This may just be a lethal attack right now.
Yeah, so the best thing that Jim can possibly do, activate the Colonnade for a block, use that to cast a Path to Exile, block something else with the Snapcaster. The Snapcaster is necessarily chump blocking, so that's probably getting in the way of the Knight.
There are 10 lands in Ely's graveyard. So Jim's going to activate Colonnade to block. Ely goes to Path the Colonnade. Jim immediately puts Emrakul into play, blocking the Knight of the Reliquary.
It's a strong play.
Ely informs him that's not legal, so then Jim scoops.
Jim says, I saw Ross Merriam put a bunch of creatures on the table without paying any mana. Why can't I do it? And Ely says, because I said no.